from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome back to my channel where I make a lot of cake and cookie decorating tutorials. And today I have a very special guest. This is my friend Rachel. She owns Happycakes in Surrey, so if you guys are in the Lower Mainland in British Columbia, come and visit Rachel. She makes amazing cupcakes at her shop, but more importantly, she makes a ton of custom cakes. So in this part of the video, she's going to be answering all of the questions that you guys submitted to me that you wanted to ask her, and this is going to be mainly about her baking business. Then we're going to do a part 2 where she talks a little bit more about the actual baking and cake decorating itself. So let's get into it. Okay, so this was all from my community post. Cool. Okay, so this was a very, very common question that a lot of you guys asked. So if I see it again and I didn't use her exact wording, it's because it's pretty much the same question. So this question here, did you start as a home bakery? And if so, what is the greatest difference you see? And would you ever go back to just a home bakery rather than a storefront?
Fun. Okay, I would never go back. Biggest difference would be cost in owning a storefront. Your expenses are a lot higher, but typically and ideally your income is a lot higher too, so that kind of offsets it.
Yeah.
I would never go back. What was the other question?
Well, how long did you do your home baking business for?
Before Happycakes, I did it from home for about 6 years.
Yeah. So to give you guys a little bit of backstory, Rachel did the very typical thing that I think a lot of us do, where we work at a bakery and then we work and do our own thing on the side. And so she worked for Happycakes, as did I. I also worked for Happycakes, and she was obviously not the owner at that point. So prior to Happycakes, you did the 6 years?
Including the Happycakes.
Okay, okay.
So I started when I was 16, and then I got a job in a bakery when I was 18,
yeah.
And then I got a job at Happycakes when I was 20, and then I bought Happycakes when I was 23. So whatever that math is.
She's very amazing. 23! I was a baby. Next question. Is it more advantageous and cost efficient to make your own fondant or purchase pre-made fondant?
Ooh, okay. Yes and no. And here's why. Buying fondant is more expensive, but your time is your money. So if you're willing to spend the time making your own fondant, that's definitely the cheaper way to go. But when you're pumping out as many cakes as we do at the shop, it's not worth paying somebody to make it. So we just buy it. So.
And I actually find you can't do the same things with homemade fondant as you can with store-bought fondant.
Especially when you're used to, like, we work exclusively with Satin Ice, so yes. Working with a different fondant.
Satin Ice. We all love Satin Ice.
Working with a different fondant just throws me off. I went to my friend's bakery a couple months ago to help her out, and she makes her own fondant, and it was so hard to adjust to.
Yeah.
Because you just get set in your ways.
Yeah, totally. And if you guys have seen my video before, I've talked about what things you should buy kind of pre-made and what things you can make yourself. And a lot of that is based on the stuff that I've learned from Rachel over the years too. So you can go ahead and check that video out in the right-hand corner.
We love the right-hand corner.
Okay, how did you get customers in the beginning? Friends and family are not willing to support to show off my creations. Any ideas? I live in a really small factory town.
Ooh, okay, so it really is word of mouth to get going. That's speaking to when I did cakes at home, was really just, I made a cake for so-and-so, this person was at the party, saw the cake, wanted a cake, like that. With Happycakes, it was a little different because I bought the shop as an existing bakery, so it already had, like, the ball was already rolling, there were already clients that were there.
Yeah.
Building that clientele is just a lot of, really, Instagram is the biggest thing for me. But same thing, word of mouth. We get so many people coming to the shop that are like, I was at a party and they had your cupcakes, or I saw so-and-so tag me in this post on Instagram. Like, it's just people talking to people is everything.
It totally is. And I think sometimes, I know that sometimes we get maybe a little bit offended when our friends or our family don't order from us. That is not your customer base, and that's okay. Like, and again, it is just so easy, that little word of mouth piece there, because it could just be one-off person that sees your stuff, but then that one person could generate how many orders, you have no idea. So I don't put too much stock in your personal friends and family not buying your stuff.
You'll also find that not everybody in your friends and family group is interested in it. Which, sucks,
totally.
But it is what it is. Like, when I first owned the shop, my first year, I was like, okay, everybody I know is gonna come get cakes for me, and then birthdays would pass, and their kids' birthdays would pass, and I'd be like, but I didn't make your cake.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is.
Yeah. And there's so many events that Rachel and we spend, I don't know, hours, days making stuff, and then our friends and family will come over, they'll be like, oh, that's nice, and then they'll eat it.
They don't get it.
Yeah, they don't get it. And then it's like, oh, you just ate like a $2,000 cake. How was it? Oh, it was good. The frosting was great. I liked that. Yeah. And it's just, it's okay. Some people just don't get it. Ooh, this is a good question. About how much did you need for startup cost for your storefront?
Tricky. Okay, again, I bought Happycakes as an existing business after working there for 3 years, so I didn't start it from the ground up. So when you're starting your own, you're gonna have a lot, like you have to buy your ovens and your fridge and your entire storefront. You got yours as a package deal. Yeah. Like everything was already in there. Yeah, I bought the whole business. So I took over the lease, everything all the equipment all became mine. I did renovate just to kind of up the look of the place, and that cost about 20 grand. And then so, I don't know, I guess the only answer I can give is the price that I bought the business for. Yeah, it's the complicated thing too is it's all about location. So her particular location and where her store is situated is actually more expensive than, you know, a little bit down the block, for example. So that is real, and I find where we live especially, land is so expensive. Rental costs of anything, homes, businesses, super expensive. So I think majority of your kind of cost goes from there because you got a really good deal on the business. And yeah, because you didn't work it from the ground up too, it's harder to say. I think there'd be a lot more hidden costs when it comes to that. Yeah, like I know friends of mine that have opened bakeries that have had to put hundreds of thousands into opening up just to buy all your equipment and get them all going and payroll and rent and everything. So I didn't have that kind of cost. I just had the cost of buying the business and then renovating a couple of years down the road, and then and she had the luxury of knowing kind of what the customer clientele was kind of going to be like. But some of you guys that might be thinking about opening your own storefront, you might not have that luxury. Like you might not be purchasing something that was already made to be a bakery, so you are taking a little bit more of a financial risk. Totally. Yeah, it's always a risk, even like buying the business. Totally. You don't know. How to properly price a cake. This is like a hot topic. You guys ask me that all the time too. So answer that one first. What is your basic way of pricing cakes? So we break everything down. We have a starting price for like the 6-inch starts at this, the 8-inch, 10-inch tiered cakes, everything has a base price, and then everything you add on to it, the price goes up. So like this particular character would be an extra $25. This would be an extra $50. If you want a drip, that's an extra $10. And how much did you base your cost based on what other bakeries were doing versus just how you particularly how much you had to pay for the ingredients and that kind of thing? Yeah, so you want to like look into the market because you don't want to be undercharging everybody or be way more expensive than every other bakery because then why would they order from you? Exactly. So we kind of... But you can't be too competitive to the point where you're undercutting other bakeries. Exactly. Yeah. You have to find that perfect middle ground. So we are quite on par with most of the bakeries in the area. Yeah. And what would you say on, this is totally my question, what would you say on average, your average customer that's walking in for custom orders is spending? For a custom cake? Yeah. I'd say average $175. Okay, and is that like a 1-tier? Yeah. Like most people are getting a 1-tier at $175 Canadian. Yeah. The next question from that same person, how many days in advance do you make a custom cake? And I know that this has changed over time. Yeah, so right now we're baking the day before and then stacking, decorating the day of. It really depends on your team and what you can pull off. If you have a smaller team, you're going to need more days because one person has to stack and then it has to sit for long enough for it to be decorated later. Yeah. She is incredibly fast though. Like you're doing a lot of your own decorating. Yes. And it is really challenging, I've heard, to find decorators that can do what you do, obviously. It's hard to find good people. Yeah, and that I think that would probably be one of the most challenging things in the business. Yeah, I have a really amazing team right now, which is everything. So yeah, the goal is to find good people and keep your good people, and then your life gets easier.
And this is again not a question that was asked, but I'm really curious because I know that I personally, that wouldn't be one of my strong points to be the boss. I'm the boss of little people, not the boss of big adult people. Right. So what are some things, what are some mantras that you keep in your mind to make sure that your staff is happy and that, you know, they're doing the work that you want for them?
Yeah, I think because I worked at Happycakes before I bought it, I knew, and at any bakery, I knew how I like to be treated by my boss. And so I very much, even from the beginning, and it was, I'm saying a lot of things. It was tricky. No, it wasn't tricky. It was crazy in the beginning when I took over because all my coworkers then became my staff. Like we were all on the same level, and then I was like, just kidding. Yeah. I'm going to tell you what you do now. Yeah. Which was weird. But I took it very much as like, we're all just a team, we're all just gonna make this work together, and then as we've grown as I've hired more people, I just keep in mind what it was like for me to work there and how I wanted to be treated by my boss. And it's a very chill bakery. We watch Netflix and eat cakes every day. And if
I could interject, I think that when I was working at the bakery with a different owner, Rachel really was the one telling me what to do anyway.
Always
she was a delegator, and that's the thing. I think because you were already taking on so many roles at that bakery, and of course things when it came to like scheduling and obviously payroll that had nothing to do with Rachel, but the things that you're actually going to be hands-on doing with your boss, like she was already doing. So I think maybe that also helped transition things.
Being in the world makes all the difference. It would be so different if I worked at a grocery store and I bought a bakery and came in and was trying to boss people around. Yeah. When you know what it's like to be in, it's easier.
Definitely. So advice to all those people that are wanting to own storefronts, just I think making it feel like a family, you know?
Totally. Make it fun.
Make it fun.
It's not supposed to not be fun.
No, but sometimes I did be very stressed in the back. Okay. And that is a great segue. What is the most stressful thing about having a storefront?
Never not working.
Yeah.
Even when I'm not at the shop, like I have my phone on me because my staff are asking me questions, they need prices, I need to do payroll, I need to do accounting, I need to do orders, like ordering all my ingredients. It's really never ending and very few days off.
Yeah, and I think too, like even when you're on vacation.
Oh yeah, there's no vacation. When we went to Mexico in 2019, and every morning I had to wake up early, do all my emails, send them off,
crazy.
And then go to the beach.
Yeah, I just wanted strawberry daiquiri when I wake up in Mexico. So yeah, I think that would be really hard. And I know a lot of you guys always ask me, why don't I run my home baking business anymore? And it's not to the level of a storefront, because the storefront you actually have to open select hours and make sure that you're staffed. But it is that kind of constant, it's always there.
Totally.
Like, and you just can't turn off and you can't forget your schedule.
Yeah, and it's especially hard when you have a family and kids.
Definitely. Like and Rachel's kidless.
Yes. It was really good timing for me to buy the shop because I was so young and still 27, don't have plans to have kids yet. So there's lots of time to just invest in the business. Yeah. And then by the time I'm ready for kids, I can take a step back and it'll kind of be flourished enough.
And isn't it interesting, because you guys probably don't know this, but I was actually like this close to buying the shop instead, because at the time I was just in more of a financial spot to do so, but I didn't have the time to do so. Yeah. And if I had run it, I would have needed to employ Rachel as the lead decorator and manager anyway. Totally. So it would have been like a completely different ballgame. It's so weird to think of now, because now I'm like, no, that shop is like Rachel's shop.
And we figured out the laundry.
Oh yes, that was a big thing. How are we gonna do the laundry? How do you figure, so this is kind of going back to the cake pricing thing, but a little bit more in depth. How do you figure out how long a cake will take you so you can change labor hours accordingly? Well, I'll tell you, she knows exactly every cake is gonna take her 30 minutes. Just kidding, but seriously. Yeah.
That really just comes down to having done so many cakes. Like, now it's to the point where someone will show me a picture and in my head in seconds I can be like, okay, that's going to take me 45 minutes. And
I've always wondered, do you adjust because they're asking about how do you adjust the labor hours, so how do you adjust staffing? do you say, I know that I always have this many staff on, so I'm only going to take this many types of cakes, or how do you do that?
I don't. I take on, as long as people order within, like we need 10 days notice for a custom cake, as long as they give me the 10 days notice, I won't turn anybody away, and that's because...
If you're in a pinch, go to Happycakes!
And that's because I can make the cakes too. So it'd be different if I didn't know how to make cakes and I was relying solely on my staff. Then it would be like, okay, I have X amount of hours to get cakes done, they can only do so much. Where with me, I have no life. So
she has a life, she comes over to my house.
So I'll just work an extra long day if I need to get the cakes done to get everything complete.
And that was what was so interesting about our boss before. She didn't know how to make cakes. So she had to be really, really careful about the way that she scheduled it.
Yeah.
This, you kind of touched upon this. Best way to get regular orders for newbies.
Advertise what you want to do. If I make a cake for a customer and hate making it, we don't post it because I don't want anybody else to order it from me. And
that happened to us all the time.
Yeah.
Like, we made so many. We always did this one type of cake, and it was a quilted cake on the bottom, and then it'd be like either plain in the center and then another quilted, or it'd be the opposite. And I don't know how many of those we made.
A million.
We made so many because it was interesting, like the owner really pushed that because she knew that that was something we could all do, and it was efficient and it was cost effective for her. But yeah, I think like now you just don't push that design as much. Not that people don't order it still, but...
And I don't turn away people who want cakes that I don't want to do. I just don't promote the ones I don't want to do.
Because, and I think your social media is now getting bigger and bigger, so like people see, oh, that's her style, so that's the type of style that I want.
Totally.
Yeah. How do you price when it's a fake layer cake?
Exactly the same. Very controversial. People are quite split on this. I used to charge a little bit less for it, but most of what you're paying for in a custom cake is the decoration. Obviously it tastes amazing too, it's a cake, but what you're paying for is the time it takes to decorate. And it takes just as long to decorate a styrofoam cake as it does to decorate a real cake. You're saving time on having to stack it, but you're spending money on buying the styrofoam. So it all kind of just...
And styrofoam is really expensive here. Like, it starts at like $5 for like the smallest thing, and then it'll go up from there. So yeah, because I know that when we did our $1,800 Finding Nemo cake, that one, and that was my pricing, that's not necessarily Rachel's pricing, but when we did that one, a lot of people were like, wow, there's only one tier of real cake on there. But you also have to remember too that in a cake like that, again, it's not just styrofoam, you're also creating like that whole big piece of steel that was in there. Super, super costly for raw materials like that, and the time that it took to actually form that and make that. So yeah, it's so interesting because a lot of you guys said like, oh, I would charge way less for a fake cake, but it really just takes the same amount.
From an outside perspective, it makes so much sense that it would be cheaper because you're not eating it. Like, you're paying for a cake and you're not getting cake. But from a business perspective, it's the same amount of work, same amount of time, same amount of cost. So anytime someone asks me for a fake cake, I say, like, we can totally do that. It's going to cost you the same though, so let's just do a real cake. And then everyone goes for real cake.
Yeah. Although personally, for myself, even if I wasn't a cake decorator, I think I might not go for real cake, because to be left with that amount of cake, that sheer volume when you don't need it, would be very annoying for me. And I don't like to waste. So I'd rather just keep it or something like that. Yeah, that's not me. How did you manage a storefront and still have time for your personal life?
I don't. It's not totally true. Like, I do come over to Ashleigh's house every day now that we're allowed to be friends again because of the yeah, in the very beginning, like my first year, I worked 7 days a week. Me and my mom. Hi, Mom. Me and my mom worked 7 days a week, and then I slowly started to back off of that. And then when the whole 2020 drama hit, I had to let all my staff go, so it was just me and Mom working again 7 days a week. And then as I started hiring people back, I got more time off, but because there was nothing else to do in the world, like everyone's quarantining and I couldn't see my friends, I still just worked every day. So you really have to love what you do, because it becomes your whole life.
And I think now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think now you're more so working on being able to step back just a little bit,
Totally.
so that you can, you know, have a family and all that kind of stuff. Because
no rush.
Yeah,
Nobody get excited.
No, but it's just like, I think this is the perfect time in your life to start establishing that,
Totally.
so that you can see what would a life where you maybe have to have responsibilities outside of your business.
Totally. My long-term goal is to have it fully running by itself, and I just come in, make a few cakes, do whatever I want.
And that just be the life. People cleaning up after you.
Yes.
How did you gain experience? I've tried getting jobs at local bakeries, but they won't hire without prior experience with fondant. And what are the best resources for self-learning? Well, this channel. Yes, just watch all 500 videos and you will be set.
What was the beginning of the question?
How did you gain experience in the first place?
I started making cakes in high school because I watched Cake Boss and was like, this is my destiny. And then, yeah, it just sparked something in me. Like, every excuse I had, I would make a cake. And so...
And you went to university first, and then just were like, no, this is not for me.
Yeah, I went to school for teaching. I just did 1 year of university, and then in that 1 year, I got a job at a bakery, and it was at that point that I was like...
And so how did you get that job, having no prior experience?
Very luckily. So I had a good amount of work, what do you call that? I had a good portfolio of stuff that I'd done just from home, because at that point I'd been doing cakes for 2 years. That doesn't seem that long, but like I said, I made cakes for every excuse, every occasion. I brought cakes to like math class and socials, and anytime I could make a cake. Any project we had at school, I'd make it into a cake.
No one's ever done that yet
for me. So when I found this bakery that I wanted to work at, I had mentioned it to a friend of mine, and her mom knew the owner. I don't even think I told you this story.
I do not know this story.
So her mom talked to the owner and talked her into interviewing me. So I went in 18 years old with pictures of stuff that I'd done, and yeah, she hired me, and it just kind of went from there.
Yeah, and I think like if you're somebody that is wanting to kind of get going in a bakery, which I actually think is super, super important, that you work for a bakery while doing your own thing. And most bakery owners won't mind, because honestly, like she mentioned before, it's very slim pickings for, you know, people that are into decorating and are willing to work for maybe a little bit of a lower wage at a bakery. I think it is super, super important to go in with an open mind and to tell your future boss that you are willing to learn. I think your willingness to learn and your work ethic is so much more important than what you actually bring just straight away.
Totally. Because
my work was honestly very subpar when I started working at the bakery. I think I made like 2 cakes before I started working at the bakery, and then I showed my potential boss and was like, okay, these are the cakes that I've made. She's like, okay, great. And then I was making like 3-tiered cakes like the next week. So it's all about your approach to learning, I think, more so than what your talent is right off the bat.
Yeah.
Did you have to change anything? Like once you bought the place, did you have to change anything to get the place up to code?
Not up to code.
Because everything would have been set and standard.
Yeah, everything was to code. We just made a lot of changes just to make things the way I wanted them to be. Yeah, just more efficient and more set for like the menu that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
All that.
How to decide what products to sell and what not to sell. And I feel like before you actually took over, we sold a lot of different random things.
Yes. So when I first bought, like we've always been a cupcake and cake shop.
Yeah.
When I first bought, we only were selling cupcakes in the storefront, no cakes. And then, so my mom works with me, and she, when we were kids, used to make the best chocolate chip cookies. No offense to your chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, I remember this chocolate chip cookie phase.
Yeah, so my mom would bake chocolate chip cookies, and we'd sell cookies, and it was fun. Totally time consuming. We could never pull it off now because it's so busy. Yeah, we were doing cake pops for a while.
Yeah, you guys always did the standard like ice cream cone cake pops.
Yeah. And we did chocolate dipped Oreos for a minute, but it really...
You did?
For like 1 minute. It came down to what's cost effective and the value in a cupcake, which you can decorate in 2 seconds, versus a cake pop, which takes 5 minutes or whatever. Yeah, it just came down to the dollars, and yeah, now we just do cupcakes, and then we've recently added in a big fridge at the front with our renovations, so now we're selling ready-made cakes as well, along with all our custom orders. But
yeah, and I feel like because you're only focusing on that one item, you're able to offer a whole lot more flavors than we ever did.
Totally. We do like between 30 and 38-ish flavors a day.
And it's so interesting because I remember when I used to work at Happycakes, and they would be like, oh, only put out like 8 flavors today.
Yeah.
And our cases would never look full.
Yeah.
It always just kind of looked a little meager. And what I've really learned about marketing is that everything needs to look full.
Totally. People buy with their eyes.
Yeah, people buy with their eyes. It's so, so important. And I feel like the only time you can make your case look like more meager is when you're kind of getting towards the end of the day.
Yeah.
Did you do some structured market research, or did you just jump right in?
I just jumped right in.
She did.
But again, like, I bought an existing business, so the ball was already rolling. It'd be different if you were starting from scratch and having to figure out your demographic and all that. But even, like, I'm gonna go ahead and say that you're not opening a bakery unless you've been doing cakes from home for a while. Like, you're not gonna start with opening a storefront, so you should already have some sort of a clientele, and if you're considering opening a storefront, you should be pretty busy.
Yeah, like I don't think you can be like, oh, I get an order a week and that's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Like you need quite a few orders, for sure.
You need to feel overwhelmed as a home baker.
Yes,
You can
and that's why you would open a that's why you would open a storefront.
Yeah.
Because you can't handle it at home. And I actually really think that this is impressive of our previous boss, because having zero cake experience whatsoever, had never even really iced a cupcake. And when she bought it, she bought just like one of those franchise kind of cupcake stores.
Yeah.
And then something happened, big dramatic story, and then she had to kind of pick up the pieces, and she found Rachel, and then Rachel was like, yeah, I've made, a few cakes, and then she just started doing it. And the fact that she was able to keep that business going, keep that clientele going, knowing nothing about baking or decorating cakes is amazing. She already had that customer base solidly in there. It just made it that much better for you when you started upping the quality of what was being done. For how long do you think you'll run your store? I've seen and heard of a lot of bakery owners burning out after some years.
Totally. I never felt the burnout until earlier this year. I was like, oh yeah, no, I've been working too much. It's all about finding balance. Like I said, you don't want to do it unless you love it, because you're committing. It's like having people always say, do you have any kids? And I say, no, I have a bakery. The bakery is my baby. So you have to understand the commitment that you're getting into. I'm gonna keep it
for life,
forever. My dream, and like I would never pressure my non-existent children, but my dream is that one of my kids would take over the shop. But who knows what'll happen. I could never go back to first of all, not being my own boss. Second of all, working a job that I'm not so in love with.
Yeah.
It'd be hard.
Do you think your experiences, though, of working for the man shaped your abilities to do what you do now? Or do you think you could have just gone straight from, running your own baking business to owner?
Like I said, working in the bakery before owning it makes all the difference. You learn all the ins and outs and all the things that you would want to change. That was a big thing for me, is when I worked for the previous owner. I was like, if I owned this place, I would do this, 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 and this. And then I owned the place, so I did this, 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 and this.
And I think it's really important for you young people out there. I know a lot of young people watch me, and I think that in this world of social media influencers, it makes it look really, really tempting to just be your own boss and do your own thing. But I think it's so important to learn those lessons about how to work for somebody else and work as a team with other people. Or else, you might not learn all the things that you need to in order to do it on your own.
And I think I'd be a much worse boss if I didn't have the experience on the other end beforehand.
This is a great one. How do you handle customers who weren't happy with their final product?
I always call my boyfriend and say, this happened.
And then he comes and talks to the customer.
With a lot of grace, if it's allowed. No, not if it's allowed. If it's
Like, okay, let's say it wasn't your issue. Like, you didn't do anything wrong. It just didn't turn out the way that they had envisioned.
Right. Okay. So if we show them the cake in the shop and they go, ooh, not totally what I was expecting, we would ask what they were expecting, see what kind of changes we can make in that moment.
Oh, you would make changes?
If it was unclear, with most of our orders, we're very like, no, nothing is up to the imagination. Like, we're doing this in this color, this will look like this will be right here. Like, everything is laid out to avoid the situations of like, oh, this isn't really what I imagined. But if it is something fixable or something that they wanted a little bit different, we can make that adjustment. If they take it home and then call or email a few days later being like, oh, this wasn't totally what I was expecting. Like, recently we made a cake for a girl that was Peppa Pig, and it was iced in green buttercream, and the shade of green didn't match her shade of green at the party, which is fair. Like, you want everything to match, but we also didn't know the exact shade that she wanted.
Exactly. So you would need a swatch given to you.
Exactly. So we told her, like, we matched it to the picture you sent. Had we known you wanted a different color, we could have done that. And most people are pretty understanding. They just kind of want an explanation, or, yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard. Like, you can be, and I've told you guys this before, you can be as clear as day and you can still run into an issue. People are going to find things to be upset about or complain about, and in their mind, and I can kind of see sometimes from their perspective, it's not that they're trying to be difficult, it's just when you're not well versed in something and then you expect it to be one way, it's just going to happen. And I think what's more important is the way that you handle it.
Totally.
So, and you're not going to please everybody.
Yeah.
So you could have handled it 100% correctly, and it could still
that is the worst part of the job, is dealing with the angry people.
And that's why I had to stop, because I could not deal with that pressure.
Yeah, we don't get it a lot. Like I said, we are a lot of bakeries will be like if a customer said, I want a Peppa Pig cake, do what you want, a lot of bakeries would be like, fun, okay. Or we're like, no, tell us exactly what you want, or this is exactly what we're going to do, and this is why it's this much. Like, everything is laid out to avoid the, it's not what I imagined.
I know, and I think a lot of people run into that problem where you will just do whatever it is. Even in, so I've done like videos, you guys have seen, you can see this one where I compare two different bakeries, and I spent $100 on an anniversary cake. And I didn't really care either way about the outcome because it was just for a video. But I could imagine that my own disappointments of, oh, that's not what I was thinking of, because you have, I think people have a lot of faith in storefronts. And you just think, oh, it's going to be this level of professionalism because I'm paying this amount for this type of cake. So it really, really is important to just tell your customers exactly what they're going to get.
Yeah, and it's not even always about a level of professionalism. It's about like what they're envisioning in their head. And then we still make you a Winnie the Pooh cake, but it's not what you pictured, so you're naturally upset.
Totally. Okay, this one was quite broad, so I'm going to just choose the less broad question. Is your bakery profitable in the long run?
Yes.
Done. This one I might have to answer because you don't do this. How would you guide customers to store decorated sugar cookies a few days before and after their event? And do they need to keep them in an airtight container or Ziploc? I'm interested in knowing the before and after care of decorated sugar cookies.
Go ahead.
So, once upon a time, the shop did do sugar cookies. I just want to touch upon this briefly about why they don't. And I've said this before, it is so much work for so little payoff.
Yeah.
The cookier life, I think, is a harder one than cakes.
Totally.
Like, even though I feel quite confident in doing cookies, and there's nothing in the cookie world that will scare me, even if I'm making like large gingerbread cookie structures, that to me is less scary than doing like 3D carved cakes. So I'm able to handle that. But even so, making cakes for me is way faster. Even though I have that confidence. And it just comes down to the way that you have to bake your cookies and how finicky things can get, and just that you're doing small little pieces. So it's definitely something I would recommend against putting in your actual bakery storefront. Unless you're solely doing custom, and even then your custom prices are going to be so high.
It's so hard because like we sell a cupcake for $3 and it takes 2 seconds to decorate.
And you can bake it in bulk so much more easily.
Yeah, and then a cookie that costs $3 is going to take you hours to make 12.
Yeah, it's crazy how, just because there's a change in viscosity. So like the cake is just, it's liquid, right? It's a liquid batter. And just that change to a dough that you have to work with and knead with, that small little change alone tacks on like hours when you're making things in bulk. Like, I just think back to the ridiculous times when we would try to roll out cookie dough in the back. When we had cakes all over the place, you need a vast space in order to roll out this dough. And a lot of you guys that are going to be opening storefronts, you're not necessarily going to have that type of space. So it definitely takes up a lot. But if you are going to still go and sell custom sugar cookies, which is super fun, I would definitely say that you don't need to store decorated sugar cookies. If you even leave them out for a couple days, you're fine. And realistically, you will have to leave them out for a couple days, because unless you have infinite freezer space, that's what's going to happen. It's going to be fine. It's not going to wreck the integrity of the cookie, and your icing is actually going to keep the cookie itself fairly moist in there, so you're going to have a nice crumb. And I would just tell customers that after they're done with their cookies for their event, store them in a Ziploc container or anything of the like in room temperature, and it's going to be fine for even up to a week. If they're not going to eat them within that time, definitely put them in the freezer. But again, anytime I'm giving care instructions of any sort, I say once it's left our hands, there's nothing we can do about it.
Totally.
So that's the biggest takeaway there. Can you read that? And do you know what that says?
No.
Sorry, we can't read Spanish. If it was in French, we'd have a better go at it. Okay. How much capital or cushion does one need to start a storefront bakery? Well, that's a good question.
I think it depends on where you are. When I started, so I had no money after I spent all my money on buying the business. So my parents gave me, I think, around $5,000, lent me, just as a cushion for if there were any expenses that came up that like I needed to cover. And then I paid that back to them, obviously, but yeah.
In hindsight, do you think that's enough? Because to me, that sounds really little.
It was really little, but it depends on your situation. Like, yeah, my expenses weren't high in the beginning because I had such little staff and we weren't doing a lot of orders, so like it was enough, but it depends on where you are, what your rent is, all that.
What do you call a little amount of orders?
I don't know.
Like per week, how many were you doing? Custom?
Ooh, maybe 25 a week.
It's a lot of cake. And how many are you doing now?
Like 60 to 80-ish.
Which is insanity, because I remember when we would have weeks where we're like, whoa, we had 15 cakes this week. And then Rachel and I would be like, oh, this is going to be so stressful. And now to think that you do that many.
They're not all like crazy over the top custom.
But still.
Yeah. We do a lot of what we call our signature cakes. So they're just 8 simple buttercream designs that we can whip up in a couple minutes. So a lot of it is that. But anyways. Yeah.
How does one decide whether the storefront is the next step to take? Because this kind of fell into your lap. It wasn't like you were like, I need to go on my quest for a storefront. Yeah. In fact, I had to convince you to do it.
I was afraid and concerned about the laundry. Okay, I always dreamed of owning a storefront, but thought it was an unattainable dream.
Yeah, like I feel like the end goal for most people that are in this business is they want to run their own thing.
Yeah, so I always would say like, yeah, one day I want to own a bakery, but didn't have any concrete plans to make that happen. When our old boss was selling and mentioned to me that I should buy it, I was like, oh, okay. So then I went over to your house and was like, should I buy the bakery? Yeah. And then you were like, yes. And I was like, but what about the laundry? Yeah. Because that's the #1 concern, apparently.
And in my head at the time, I was just like, what other end goal is there?
Totally.
And what do you have to lose? Because I was just kind of starting out my family. And so I was like, for me, it is like a big, big thing. But for you, you're still living at home. And it was like, at least you didn't have that, the risk of your house or anything like that being on the line.
Yeah, it was such a miracle situation that fell upon me. And then even like I said, I was 23, so no bank would give me a business loan. because I was 23 and had no assets and no history running a business, and everything just kind of fell into place like a little cupcake miracle. Yeah. So
because I remember like I was already a teacher at this point, and so I was just making, you know, regular career type money, nothing crazy, but very, very steady. And I remember there were times where you're like, oh, I can't go out to eat because I'm saving up, or like I'm trying not to spend so much. Yeah. And it's just, the life you lead now is so different. Yeah. Like she's really built an empire, quite honestly. Like, yeah, it's really amazing.
It's a lot of work. Like I said 1,000 times, you have to be willing to put the hours in, and you won't make money unless you're willing to put the work in.
Definitely. This is a working business for sure. Yeah. And any ideas on inexpensive marketing other than word of mouth to be on top of the mind for people in your community when it comes to baked goods? So I guess just staying...
Instagram. Yeah. Instagram is huge right now. If you're watching this right now when this is coming out, I don't know what the future holds, but Reels are everything. I've gotten so much exposure from posting like Reels on Instagram.
Millions of views.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm in Facebook groups for the community that my shop is in, so I'm constantly in there, so like the neighborhood knows what's going on, and people are recommended to come to me, and I can be like, hey, like, put your face to your business and let people see, like, Rachel is Happycakes. Like, it's not just a brand, it's a person. Yeah. It makes a difference, too.
And I feel like your location is very prime.
Totally. Yeah, we're in a really good spot. Here's the thing. I don't post cakes and stuff. Like, I don't post on my Instagram feed very often, which I should be better. I need to be better at it. But I'm on my stories a lot, and just connecting with the community. Like I said, put your face to your brand, and people will get to know you better and remember you.
I will say that I think because she's already so well established in this community that you can get away with not posting a lot of your cake and your product.
Again, I should be. I'm so...
Yeah, so I do recommend that you do that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
She's not lazy. She's just really busy.
I'm busy.
What keeps you going through the tough times? And I'm sure during 2020 especially, we had a lot of tough times, especially for small business owners.
Yeah. I'm very, and you're the same way, just like, you just grind through it. Like, you just work every day.
You've got to be forward thinking. Yeah. It's kind of like when you're running up a hill and you don't want to look too far forward because then that feels like an impossibility, but you're just like, I know that there's something ahead of me, but I'm going to keep my head down and I'm going to keep running. And it doesn't matter what I'm feeling or doing. Yeah. I'm just going to keep doing that.
Yeah. And I often, on really busy days, like Father's Day this year was bonkers, and I was not prepared for how busy it was. And
she didn't call me in to pay me in sprinkles. That's the problem.
And I just, like, I get in this headspace of, like, what are you gonna do? Not get it done? And so you just keep going, and you work, like, I was working 3 a.m. to 10 p.m. a lot of days, just getting it all done. And then you do it, and then you go, yay, I can sleep now.
And I think every situation is finite. You need to remember that too. It's not always going to be one way, so you can make it through.
And there are way more good days than bad days. And also, ideally, and in my situation, the bad days, like the days that I had to work 3 a.m. to 10 p.m. or whatever it was, are because we're so busy. So the payoff financially is good for having to do that much work.
I also think it's really important to have a super good support system.
Totally.
Which I feel you do have.
Yeah, my mom works with me and she will do anything that I need at the shop, and it's really amazing. Thank you, Mom.
How do you deal with some customers' complaints about, say, the amount of sugar in your cake while others say it's delicious and have no complaints at all? Do you switch it up by reducing the sugar?
No. We have our set recipes. They are loved by all except a few, and if it's not your thing, then Happycakes isn't your thing. You just tell them.
Yeah, and quite honestly, if you start adjusting things to every person's taste, you're going to waste so much money and so much time in the long run.
For example, we do everything with American buttercream. As we know, I love it. A lot of people don't love it because it's a lot sweeter than Swiss meringue, so I get a lot of people asking for Swiss meringue cakes, and I just say no. Yeah. Bye. And then I'll tell them, like, this, and this bakery do it. Yeah. Go see them. They're amazing.
Yeah. Same thing with fillings, too. What time does baking begin with the storefront?
Depends on the day. Sometimes like Saturdays, I usually have to go in pretty early, sometimes like 3 or 4, sometimes more reasonable like 6. And then early in the week, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are usually around like 8. I have 4 ovens now, so I can bake about 400 cupcakes an hour. So that reduces the amount of like that reduces the, what am I trying to say? I don't have to go in as early anymore because I can get so much done right away. When we just had, like when I bought the shop, we just had 2 ovens. So like you can make batter as quickly as you can, but it's still going to take 21 minutes to bake the batch. So the more you can get in the oven, the more you get to sleep in the morning.
And I think something that's important to remember is that when we think of the traditional bakery, we often think of bakeries that are selling like croissants and pastries. And that type of work is extremely different from making cupcakes. And I think, again, this is where the success of Happycakes lies, because they're only focusing on one thing that is very, very simplistic in terms of baking. You don't have to proof anything.
Yeah.
This is also a great question. How long did you run your storefront before you quit second-guessing yourself about your life choices?
Ooh, I don't think I ever second-guessed myself.
Asking from the standpoint of someone who went to brick and mortar 20 months ago, so I'm assuming maybe they're feeling a little bit anxious.
Yeah, I had such a good support system, and I had such a drive to make it better. And so, and like I knew it wasn't going to fail because, and that's the advantage of buying a business that already exists. Like I've said 1,000 times, the ball was already running. So I wasn't ever worried about failing. I was worried about burning out. And yeah, I still never think about Happycakes failing. I think if there is an end to Happycakes, it would be me selling it, not me giving up.
Did you go to school to become a baker?
No. Like I said, just started in high school because I watched Cake Boss, got a job in a bakery, and all my learning has been just hands-on, being in it, watching YouTube videos.
Yeah. Not mine.
Until recently. And then, yeah, learning from friends. Like I have my friend Leila, who is amazing.
She's fantastic. Her Instagram is right here. Go and check out her cakes.
She does amazing structure work, so she's taught me everything I need to know about structured cakes. So it's really leaning on the community, watching videos, and just doing things over and over again.
And someone like Leila, who is absolutely amazing, has been on the Food Network a few times. She also did not go to culinary school or anything like that. I think you're gonna find, especially where we live and the bakeries that I know of, I would say it's very 50-50 of people who went to culinary school and people who didn't.
I would say 75% didn't.
Yeah?
I can only think of one that did.
I guess because I'm just counting maybe the other bakeries that I don't know.
Right.
But I would say, like, yeah, it's not a given that you have to go to culinary school in order to, and especially when it comes to custom cakes.
Yeah.
Because that portion, depending on what type of culinary school you go to, can be very, very short.
Yeah, it depends on what you're passionate about. Like one of my staff two of my staff are actually in pastry school right now, and they love the pastry world, where that's not what we focus on at Happycakes. So if you want to own a bakery where you do focus on that world, then for sure, but if you're just looking to make cakes, you're not going to find a ton of value in it.
And I will say it's extremely difficult. There is a local bakery here that does this, and my hat's off, but I would think that it'd be extremely difficult to have a whole sector of baked goods, like actual pastries, like things that are handcrafted, and do the custom cake thing as well. Like, I think that'd be really tricky. What do you do when your sales start dropping? She comes and hangs out with me more.
Sort of, yeah. It depends.
I don't think you worry anymore though, because you have such highs.
Yeah, we always, and I don't know if this goes for every bakery everywhere, but we're always busy in the summer, wedding season. So, okay, we're busy in the summer for wedding season, and then it dies off towards Christmas because a lot of people are doing their own cookie baking.
Yeah.
You know, Christmas baking, and like I said, we just do cupcakes and cakes, so it's always slower. November, December, January is always slow because people are doing their New Year's resolutions
and they've spent all their money on other things.
Yeah, so January's slow, and then we pick up again for February. So February through like October is like peak season. So especially in the first few years, that peak season was just like being a squirrel and collecting all the money and putting it in the bank and grasping through the slow season. now it's not at, like, it's still slower in the slow season, but it's not like desperate times. I do bring my staffing down in the slower season to kind of reduce some of my costs. And then, yeah, with less orders comes less expenses. Like, you're not spending as much on ingredients, staff.
So from what I'm hearing, it's less about, oh, trying to hustle and get more stuff, and it's more about just working smarter and reducing your hours.
Not reducing the store hours.
No, but reducing your staffing hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what works for me, because I know that we ebb and flow like that. If it depends on where you are, right? Like, I don't know if that applies everywhere. Yeah, and then you just rely on Valentine's Day to pick you back up again.
Which it will.
Yeah.
If I know anything. That bakery, like the line is like down the block.
It's crazy.
How do you deal with customers that are just asking for, I want the best cake? Like, I feel like these superlatives are so tricky to answer. We get that a lot.
Like, I want a regular size cake, or I want a birthday cake, or I want a...
Which could mean so many things.
Yeah, so I always just respond with, we can do anything. Like, it is limitless. Please send me ideas.
Yeah. And that's tricky, because like I feel like sometimes when I don't know about something, I'm like, do whatever is normal.
Totally.
You know, I don't know what normal is.
Yeah.
So do you ever give, just like, are you like, these are cakes that people like in general?
I'll often, like, if people have no idea what they're looking for, I'll say, if you're looking for something like simple but cute, check out our signature cakes. If you're looking for something more custom, like, there's tons of pictures on our Facebook, Instagram website, take a look there. Or
so we are literally trying to answer every single one of the questions that you guys posted in that community post. So we're gonna break this up into 2 videos. That was all about the baking business side of things. So thank you so much to Rachel for answering all of those questions. And I'm sure as her business continues to grow, we're gonna do this again. And there'll be plenty more videos in your shop. I wanna come more to your shop. She wants me to quit my job so I can go work at Happycakes.
Like, for sure, dude.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading weekly, so make sure you hit the notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye.